Hi, I'm showing you how to dye action figures and how the process works. I'm going to be dyeing Ghost Rider, and I'm also going to be dyeing a gun holster. With Ghost Rider, I'm not going to dye the whole entire figure. I'm just going to dye these little joints here. I would paint over them, but the problem is that if I were to paint over it, it would constantly scratch the paint. It would leave like a whole bunch of I would constantly have to keep painting over it and junk, and I would have to sand it, and I don't really want to do that. And plus, it's a more permanent solution than painting it. And that's usually what I do most of the time if I'm having a character. You know, if I'm giving them darker colors, or if I'm coming up with like a base coat for like a character that's mostly going to have darker colors. So I'm going to be dyeing his this whole joint black, so that way it can blend in with everything else. And I'm also going to be dyeing this. It's a holster. I'm making this for a Punisher. It's from a Firefly figure that I sold that I no longer have because I made my own. But I'm going to be dyeing this black so that way it can blend in with everything else of, Punisher's design and whatnot. I'm going to get the water boiling soon. I don't really have any water in there right now, but I'm going to add a little bit of water in there and also add this. This is what I usually use to dye my figures. Now, dyeing action figures is kind of a weird process. A lot of people don't really, they don't really understand it when they're first going into it. I didn't at first. And it's a process that it's like all trial and error. But usually when you're dyeing action figures, you usually want to do it with plastic that's softer, like Ghost Rider, for example. The legs here are dyed black, and they were originally blue. And usually when it's a softer, more gummy plastic, it's super fast and it's easy. Now you can dye harder plastic, but you have a chance of it getting warped or the plastic just boiling and getting all kinds of funky, and it doesn't even dye completely black. It's more of like a purplish hue. It's good if you're using it as a base coat, but I'm going to get it started. I'm going to pause the video, and then I'll resume it back once I actually start the process. Okay, so now the water's getting hot, and it's dang near to the point where I can actually put the figure in if I want to. I mean, right now I could, but I kind of want to show you how fast, that some of the, like how fast it can actually like dye the figure itself depending on the plastic. And I figured this is a perfect example of it. Still not used to doing these videos. It's kind of neat. I like doing it because I get to, show off how I work on, these figures, and, it's something I'm passionate about. So forgive me if I am a little awkward with this. So when you're dyeing these figures, you don't really need to I usually use the whole thing of this. Like right now this is empty, and then I put a little bit of water in there. Water isn't going to mess it up too much, just make sure it's an even amount, or at least enough to where it'll help the dye out and stuff. And the things that you don't have to constantly dispose of it every time you use it. You can keep using it as long as you want until it stops doing what it's supposed to do. So we're going to put this in now. I'm turning this down a little bit so I don't burn myself. Make sure you use something that you're not going to ever use, like this pan or right here. And I thought I was going to need this, but I'm just putting a holster on Ghost Rider's legs, since all I've got to do is just, hold it in there. When you're dyeing stuff, just make sure, it's kind of an obvious thing, don't just leave the figure in there, because it can still, like, get burnt. And, and whatnot, no matter what you do, just make sure if you do leave it in there, you have something like this supporting it, or like where it's just sitting in the water, not touching actual metal at all. So this isn't going to take too long, since the water's already like boiling hot. I think the only thing I might have to do though, because I didn't really think this through entirely, is that my dumb behind shouldn't have painted that belt silver, so that steam is going to really mess it up. As you can see, it's kind of already starting to do what it's supposed to do. See, it's already dyeing it to what I need it to be, because it's a super soft plastic. Super soft plastics will dye like within maybe like not 1 minute, but like maybe like within 5 minutes or 10 at most when it comes to softer plastics. That's why doing this joint isn't going to take long. And this holster is definitely not going to take long since it's all one like solid piece and it's super gummy. I usually don't mind gummy plastics as long as it still feels sturdy, because they're easy to dye, and plus it does make the figure a lot more durable in the long run. At least for some. If it's done wrong, a figure can just break on you, and it's not fun. Kind of went on a little tangent there, wasn't trying to. Alright, so as you can see, this is already black, and I barely had it in there. So we're going to turn the heat down a little bit, because we don't need it that hot anymore. And as you can see, Ghost Rider's joints are also black now. I'm trying to get towards... There we go. So all I gotta do is when you're doing joints, make sure you're always moving it. Moving the joint itself, so that way it can get the actual... all of the plastic that's on the joint. And the things that just doing that, it's already done. We're gonna do the back now, and then Ghost Rider should be done. I'm gonna stop the video here, and then I'm gonna resume it and show you what to do after you're done with it. So now that you're done dyeing the figure, all you have to do is just rinse it off with cold water, and you're pretty much done. That way you can get all the excess dye off, and that way it doesn't stain the rest of the figure. Because especially if you plan on painting it afterwards, you're definitely going to have a hard time having the paint stick and stay on there. And if you did everything right, it should for sure be the color you want it. Now, I haven't tried any other colors. I've just been doing black. But as you can see, this was gray. Now it's completely black. It saves a lot of time on painting if you don't want to like have your paint constantly getting scratched up, and if you don't want to have to constantly touch up on things. And it's just a huge time saver. See, now Ghost Rider's joints here are now black. And now I don't have to worry about, you know, paint chipping and paint scratches. And this custom is pretty much done now. The only thing I would really need to do is touch up on the belt again, and then he's good to go. And then maybe give him a better opposable chain, but even then, that's not really high on the priority, because the main aesthetic's done. So, that's usually how you dye figures. Just be careful when you're dyeing them. You're using the plastic you're dyeing is a soft plastic, because if it's a hard plastic, just paint over it. Might as well just do the usual prep, the whole sanding, priming, and that whole spiel. But if it's a soft plastic, go ahead and dye it, especially if you're going for darker colors, because it's going to be a huge time saver. You won't have to sand anything, just maybe move the joint as it's getting dyed. I was going to dye a pair of legs, but the custom I wanted to make didn't really pan out the way I wanted to, so just figured I could show you guys how to, you know, just do the tutorial on Ghost Rider and this holster, since they were pretty much my only customs I actually needed to do this with. And that's kind of about it.